Hello and welcome to the second day of AI Summit London. My name is Max Smolaks, I'm the editor at AI Business, the publication dedicated to artificial intelligence, and I'm talking to Appu Shaji, CEO of Mobius Labs. Hello Appu, welcome to the show.
Hi Max, a pleasure to be here.
So first of all, Mobius Labs is a startup, a young startup, so can you tell us about the origin story? How did you decide to work with computer vision?
Absolutely. So I've been working in computer vision for quite some time right now. So probably I started working in computer vision like 18, 20 years ago. So
Wow.
Initially I started in university. So I was did a PhD and a sort of a postdoc in computer vision and started using machine learning techniques to solve computer vision in 2000s essentially. So back then computer vision was a pretty small obscure field, for example. It didn't have the hype, or even AI didn't have the hype that we enjoy right now. Back in 2012, while I was doing postdoc, I decided to sort of switch my career path from academia to entrepreneurship because I really fell in love that as an entrepreneur, you can create value. You can take what you build, give it to other people, and other people can actually use it for something. This aspect was maybe in an academia was slightly different, where you are writing papers, etc. I did multiple attempts in entrepreneurship. The first company didn't work. The second company worked, and Mobius is my third company which I'm starting, all in the field of computer vision. And in generally, for me, it's a very exciting time because the technology is super strong, but at the same time, how people perceive the technology, how people are starting to make use of the technology is drastically increasing, in the sense that 4 or 5 years ago, if you think that an individual has to use an AI system, or a small company has to use an AI system, this was not a thought in people's head. But that has changed, and that was a thought of the genesis of Mobius. How can we be that company which allows anyone to start use computer vision into their products or processes, and they don't need to be computer vision experts. They can buy a software from what we develop in Mobius Labs.
And a part of this kind of easy-to-use approach is something called few-shot learning, right? This is something that Mobius Labs specializes in. So can you talk us through it? Like, what is few-shot learning and why is it important?
Absolutely. So one of the challenges of traditional sort of machine learning systems that you see is that usually it requires sort of large amount of data, large amount of training time, large amount of expertise to do it. So few-shot learning techniques are a set of techniques which starts to tackle that problem, where you don't need large amount of data, you don't need large amount of expertise to train this or further train these models, or you don't need sort of large GPUs to train these models.
Okay.
So you can do that with some of the restrictions that was there in the community. How we do that is that we pre-train what we call as feature representations. From the pre-trained representations, we can train on top of it with low amount of data, and that's the idea of few-shot. What we have done is that this few-shot capabilities, the accuracy of these few-shot capabilities is comparable and sometimes better than actually training end-to-end systems. So suddenly you are in this interesting paradigm where you are not going around and collecting large data sets. You're just collecting a few data sets that is applicable for you, train it almost instantaneously and see the results and deploy it.
Yes, and there's also the concept of no-shot learning. So is that a pipe dream, or do you really believe that you eventually will be able to create systems that need pretty much zero training data?
Yeah, it means there'll be definitely one-shot, zero-shot kind of things which will come in. And in general, it's just think about our sort of intelligence, right? In the sense that people don't have to be taught everything verbatim to acquire new skills. And these few-shot or low-shot learning things are something like that. You have something already existing from which you to add new form of intelligence or new form of recognition capabilities. You don't have to sort of redo the entire thing. You do a little part of this very intelligently, and usually, and sort of from a scientific lens, I find that building these representations where you can actually achieve this few shot or low shot is a major step in advancing AI in the sort of the next immediate 1 or 2 years, essentially.
And are there any kind of particularly interesting applications of computer vision that I think, we don't see today, but are going to be huge over the next couple of years? Is there anything that you're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. There are So as when we are continuing in this journey with Mobius Labs, a lot of new business problems are popping up. So something that really popped up, which was really interesting for us, is in this whole space industry, especially on this Earth observation industry.
Yeah.
Because if you think about, like, it's an industry which is by itself very fascinating, where the space journey of humanity is getting commercialized. But if you think about that journey, what is happening is that it is really sophisticated hardware. These are actually cameras, which we are launching to outer space, taking massive visuals, large-scale visuals of our world, and they have insights inside that. But to actually make that insight manageable, you have to do it in a scale, and you need AI to solve that. And suddenly that becomes really interesting. And some of the conversations that we are having is like really interesting. How can we deploy computer vision directly onboard satellites to make this decision real time? Sometimes even more interestingly, even outside the Earth observation, more for launching outer space. How can computer vision actually go outer space and makes these judgments? So it's really exciting where the technology can go, because frankly, 4 years ago, I didn't think of taking the technology outside our world, but that literally is becoming a reality, which is exciting to see.
So actual kind of like extraplanetary AI.
Yeah, I mean, there is a scope of that. We will be in the roadmap maybe 2 or 3 years from now, but there is definitely extraterrestrial AI, for example, not what Mobius does. For example, if you looked at NASA's Mars mission, you had sort of large videos and commercial grade cameras and hardware in these things, which is very much capable of running sort of current grade AI systems. So it's a matter of time that we'll have AI in outer space.
Okay, thank you. And there's a lot of talk, and including at the AI Summit, about low-code and no-code solutions in AI. So how important is to the progress of kind of AI as a tool for business?
I think this is also one of the most critical element here, because technology, when it hits the inflection point, when it can be used by people who doesn't know anything about the technology.
Yeah.
And low-code and no-code AI is that critical piece in machine learning, because right now we have a bottleneck. The bottleneck is that you need an expertise to train these models. And what these low-code and no-code AI systems are doing is removing that barrier. Just a personal anecdote, for example, I did a PhD in computer science, and back when I was doing PhD, the technology definitely was not advanced. It was roughly maybe 10% of what we have right now, what was the capabilities. But for example, doing something simple like telling a machine, this is a cat, this is not a cat, for example.
Yeah.
That took me like 3 to 4 months of coding to get it done. With some of the Mobius technology that we have built, my daughter and her friends were actually training models in like 1 or 2 minutes to classify certain Lego bricks or certain toys, for example. And suddenly you can just see that, okay, I was thinking how stupid, it took me 6 months, and these kids are doing it in like 1 or 2 minutes essentially. And that's the inflection point that this no-code and low-code AI is bringing in, because now you are no longer bottlenecked by the technological abilities, you are bottlenecked by what applications that you can conjure upon. And then you can use the low-code, no-code AI to actually reach that goal very fast.
And if the kids are using it, then hopefully like an average business user can handle it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have clients, non-technical users who are training the AI. And that's the goal, in the sense that the applications that usually the bottleneck of large-scale AI adoption. And when I say AI, in my case, I'm talking mostly about computer vision. That's the field that we are talking about. The biggest bottleneck has been always that there's a technology and the product tries to fit into that. Making business value, there should be a business problem, there should be a product problem, and the technology is just the means to reach there. And this is what we are giving our customers. Like, for example, a press agency wants to identify a particular person or a particular concept. They don't have to think about the limitation of technology. They just have to think about what problem, what business problem, what product problem, what content problem they have to solve. And technology is there to help them out actually reach their goal.
Well, thank you. As a technology enthusiast, I'm certainly looking forward to the future with a lot more kind of computer vision because, I mean, it is magical when it works, and we're going to follow Mobius Labs with interest. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot. See you.